The other evening I watched a television programme about a young man called Billy Munger. Billy Munger was a young motor racing driver, and after a terrible crash he had to suffer the amputation of both his legs. And I was watching a programme as he rose to the challenge of walking and kayaking and cycling an incredible 140 miles to raise money for comic relief. And the pain was evident in his face as his challenge progressed with each step that he took. But evident as well was the determination and his sheer grit, his resolve to see through to the end what he'd started. And I was full of admiration for him. A similar determination, of course, characterised Captain Sir Tom, doggedly walking around his garden to raise money for the NHS, and eventually, in between his 99th and 100th birthday, raising over £30 million. I really admire people who don't give up. I wish I was one of them. One of my personal regrets is that 23 years ago I set out to cycle from Land's End to John Groat's, and I confess that 4 days and just over 300 miles later I cycled up to my house and I stayed there. Now, that wasn't because of a mistake in navigation, it was because of a failure of resolve. Although in my own defence I would point out that a companion was due to come with me and they dropped out at the last minute. I ended up doing it on my own, and that was nothing like as fun and a great deal more boring than it otherwise would have been. But the fact is, I didn't follow through and finish on what I'd set out to do. Jesus had a quality of resolution that we can only gawp admiringly at, really. We're told in Luke's Gospel, chapter 9, that the Lord Jesus, conscious that the clock was ticking, conscious that the time for his death was fast approaching, resolutely set out for Jerusalem. Some 700 years or so before, the prophet Isaiah had said that God's servant would set his face like a flint. There was nothing weak or soft or yielding in the resolve of Christ. His determination to keep that grim appointment with the cross was absolutely 100% rock solid. And he didn't relent of his decision. He didn't indulge his fears or surrender to them. He didn't try and evade what was coming. He was, in short, resolved. And the dramatic and bloody events of Thursday night and what we call Good Friday did not take him by surprise. He had, in fact, for several months been warning his disciples of exactly what would await him and what would happen to him in Jerusalem. Well, very soon it will be Easter time, and the focus of Christians all around the world will be on those grim events of Good Friday, the final hours of Christ's life, and then, of course, the focus will shift to thinking about his resurrection. For me personally, Easter is a bittersweet time. The bitterness comes because it was on Easter Monday 25 years ago that my eldest son had a fatal accident. The sweetness comes, which goes a long way to offsetting that bitterness, the bitterness of loss. The sweetness comes by the contemplation of resurrection, by the certainty of resurrection, because Jesus was raised from the dead. And as we approach Easter here in the UK, I'm going to take a time each morning, each day this week, to, I suppose, really just think out loud concerning the circumstances and even more concerning the conversations that Jesus had during that final week of his life. Public opinion can be very fickle, and it's an amazing thing that on the Sunday, the first day of the week, in the final week of Christ's life, the crowds called out for his coronation. And by the Friday of that same week, they were calling out for his crucifixion. But the week started well, and tomorrow we will think about what we call the triumphal entry of Christ into Jerusalem. The triumphal entry into the city which would live up to its track record, as Jesus put it, of killing God's messengers, I hope you can join me tomorrow and indeed all through the week as we reflect on the events of these last few days in the life of Jesus Christ on earth. Thank you. I look forward to sharing the time with you.